Okay, if everyone can hear, let's start.
נחום,
What?
מוקדש ליעקב בן עקיבא זיו. תודה.
Okay, תודה. Let's start.
יעקב שלמה בן עקיבא.
What I want to do is start with Masechet Psachim. Can you all see?
Yeah.
Okay, you can all see the text. So this is Masechet Psachim, the beginning of the 6th chapter. This is the Mishnah. In the version of the Bavli, you can see that the Mishnah is very, very long. It continues all the way to here on the top of the next page. I'm not sure that that's really the original length of the Mishnah, but let's start with the Mishnah. This Mishnah is discussing... Whoa, too much noise in the background. Wait a second. You can't mute me. Oh, that doesn't work. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you, Nachum.
Oh, okay, fine. I got a message that said I was muted. Okay. The Mishnah is discussing the halachot of what happens when Erev Pesach is Shabbat. Next year, Erev Pesach will be Shabbat. And the Mishnah wants to discuss the technicalities of exactly how one is to bring a Korban Pesach on Shabbat for the next day. Because if the 14th of Nisan is Shabbat, the 15th of the night between the 14th and 15th is when we bring the Korban Pesach. So the Mishnah states, where are we? Okay, can you see the Mishnah? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Let's share screen. Okay, here's the Mishnah. Elu dvarim b'Pesach dochim et haShabbat, shchitato, uzrikat damo, umichui korvav, v'aktarat chalavav, aval tzliato v'adachat krovav, einan dochim et haShabbat. Let's just start with just that first sentence. These are the things that are doche Shabbat, that even when Erev Pesach is Shabbat, we do them anyway. The actual shchita, the slaughtering of the Korban Pesach. Zrikat damo, they would gather some of the blood from the Beit HaShchita, from the neck of the animal, and throw it on the Mizbeach. Michui kravav, they would squeeze out the contents of the intestines, so it won't get stinky. Hakravat chalavav, the chelev, from the klayot and other parts of the animal, haktarat kravav, those go on the mizbeach, but only after Shabbat ends. Aval tzliato v'adachat kravav einan dochim et haShabbat, those wait till after Shabbat. Now we get a list of the things that are not dochim et haShabbat. Harkavato, bavato michutz l'tchum, you can't carry the animal. You can't bring it from more than 2,000 amot away. Chatichat yabalato, if it has some sort of minor growth that is removable, but until you remove it, it is considered a mum. Ein dochim et haShabbat. Why? Because you could have done them before Shabbat. Rabbi Eliezer Omer dochin. That Rabbi Eliezer says you can even do those preparations on Shabbat, even though they theoretically could have been done before. And we're going to see that Rabbi Eliezer is very consistent. This is the same Rabbi Eliezer who has a whole chapter in Masechet Shabbat devoted to Rabbi Eliezer's general principle that if a mitzvah is permitted on Shabbat, all its preparations are permitted on Shabbat. Such there is a chapter, I think it's the 12th chapter of Masechet Shabbat, that it's called Rabbi Eliezer de Mila, and he allowed all the preparations for Brit Milah to be performed on Shabbat itself, including chopping trees to make coals to run a very hot fire in order to sharpen a knife on Shabbat to do a brit? And the simple answer everyone else says, well, just get a knife before Shabbat. But Rabbi Eliezer allows all, if the mitzvah is doche Shabbat, all its preparations as well. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer Omer dochim. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, halo dinhu, it's a kal v'chomer. Ma'im shchita shehu mishum melacha dochet haShabbat, elu shehem mishum shvut lo yidchu et haShabbat. The actual shchita of the animal, everyone agrees, is dochet haShabbat when we're talking about the Korban Pesach. So these other things, which are only dinim d'Rabbanan, surely we would allow you to violate Shabbat for these dinim d'Rabbanan. Amalei Rabbi Yoshua, Yom Tov Yochiach. I'm going to prove to you that your proof is no good. What's the proof from Yom Tov? On Yom Tov, we all know that we're allowed to cook and do certain other preparations that are necessary for the Yom Tov on the Yom Tov. Among them, cooking and many of the preparations that surround cooking. Sheitiru bo Yom Tov sheyochiach sheitiru bo mishum melacha, va'asur bo mishum shvut. Rabbi Eliezer wanted to prove that if the isur d'oraita of shchita was permitted, then surely the relatively minor isurim d'Rabbanan, those two should be permitted. And Rabbi Yoshua says, no. Look at the Yom Tov, where we allow you to do certain isurim d'oraita on Yom Tov, that would normally be asur on Shabbat, such as cooking on Yom Tov, but we don't allow you to do dinim d'Rabbanan. Amarle Rabbi Yoshua, Amarle Rabbi Yoshua, Amarle Rabbi Yoshua, Yom Tov Yochiach, Amarle Rabbi Eliezer, Maze Yoshua. What kind of proof is this? Ma raya reshut lemitzvah. You're bringing a proof from making your personal food on Yom Tov that you're allowed to do. We're not talking about something that's personal and private and optional. If you had cooked before Yom Tov, you wouldn't need to cook on Yom Tov. So the fact that we allow you to do that on Yom Tov is no proof, because, or that we don't allow you to do dinim d'Rabbanan on Yom Tov is no proof, because cooking on Yom Tov and other preparations on Yom Tov, you don't need to do. You could have done them before. But how can you compare that to the chiyuv, the mitzvah of Korban Pesach? Heshish Rabbi Akiva v'amar, Haza'ah tochiach. Haza'ah, we're talking about the sprinkling of the mechatat from the parah aduma, that if someone's third or seventh day from Tumat Meit comes out on Shabbat, we don't allow the sprinkling of the Efer HaParah on Shabbat, even if that means that he will not be eligible to bring the Korban Pesach because he's a Tmei Met. So the din d'oraita of Korban Pesach is put off, even though we don't allow the sprinkling of the Efer HaParah. And that isn't really a din d'oraita. It's not even. Why don't we allow the sprinkling of the Efer HaParah on Yom Tov? Whereas it's a gzeirah, we're afraid that maybe he'll carry the vial of the water with the Efer HaParah. He'll carry it Reshut Rabim on Shabbat, but there's nothing about the sprinkling itself that is asur. So back to Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva, Heshiv Rabbi Kiva v'amar, Haza'ah tochiach shehi mishum mitzvah, v'hi mishum shrut, ve'ina dochat haShabbat, af ata al titma al elu she'af al pi shehem mishum mitzvah, ve'hem mishum shrut, lo yidchu et haShabbat. Rabbi Kiva throws a good, strong proof at Rabbi Eliezer. Amalo Rabbi Eliezer, va'aleh anidan. Why do you assume I even agree with you? That's exactly my point. Rabbi Eliezer holds that you are allowed to do the Mei Nidah, the Efer HaParah on Shabbat when it's Erev Pesach. because he considers it a machshir mitzvah for bringing the Pesach. Va'alei nidan u'ma'im shchita shehi mishum malacha dochat haShabbat hazaha mishum shvut eino din shedochet haShabbat. He brings his own kal v'chomer to prove l'shitato that yes, you can do the Efer HaParah on Yom Tov itself, and not on Yom Tov, on Shabbat preceding Yom Tov. Next page. Amalo Rabbi Akiva O Chaluf. Well, I can turn your kal v'chomer around on you. Ma'im hazashi mishum shvut eino dochat haShabbat shchita shehu melacha eino din shelo tidchet haShabbat. If you're going to bring a proof like that, I can turn it totally inside out and bring a keilu, a proof that you're not allowed to bring the Korban Pesach when Erev Pesach is Shabbat, because if we don't allow you to violate a din d'Rabbanan of sprinkling the Efer HaParah, then surely a din d'oraita of shchita we're not going to let you do. Now, Rabbi Akiva is clearly not trying to argue that you're not allowed to bring the Korban Pesach when it's Erev Shabbat, when it's Shabbat. His point is that Rabbi Eliezer's kal v'chomer, if you turn it around and run it backwards, is completely undefinable. Hamalo Rabbi Eliezer, Akiva, akarta ma shekatuv b'Torah. But it's mufurash, a pasuk, b'moado, and we're going to look at that pasuk at great length. But it says in the pasuk that the Korban Pesach needs to be brought b'moado, that being on its appropriate day. What is the appropriate day for the Pesach? Agav, what is Chag HaPesach? Chag HaPesach is not the same thing as Chag HaMatzot. We use it today interchangeably, and that creates a huge misunderstanding in a couple of psukim in Parshat Bo, which we'll get to. But Chag HaPesach is the 14th of Nisan, and the Pesach is brought b'moado. So Rabbi Akiva, in his pointed rejoinder to Rabbi Eliezer, in effect, is ignoring the pasuk that says b'moado, bein b'chol, bein b'shabbat. Amar lo, Rabbi Akiva responds to Rabbi Eliezer, who's his teacher. He's trying to be respectful. On the other hand, he's not planning to give in on the point that he's trying to make. Rebbe, haveli moed la'elu, kemoed l'shchita. Exactly the point I'm trying to make. The shchita, the Pesach, there's a pasuk mufurash that it says you bring the Korban Pesach b'moado. But for all these other machshirei mitzvah that you're talking about, whether it's the bringing of the animal in Reshut HaRabim, or cutting off its a yabelet so to get rid of a mum, or to sharpen the knife, or to do any of those other things that aren't strictly necessary on that day, there's no pasuk moado about those. The pasuk about the moado is only about the shchita of the Korban Pesach. Klal amar Rabbi Akiva, kol malacha she'efshar la'asota me'erev Shabbat eino dochat haShabbat. Shchita she'ei efshar la'asota me'erev Shabbat dochat haShabbat. How do we know that the halacha is Rabbi Akiva? For one, because we know the halacha in this case, we know. But also, if you look, the little footnotes here in the text refer us to up here. We can look up what the halacha is. Here they are. There's a bed and a gimel. You want to look it up? They're here. So we know the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva because we have the footnotes. But first, I want to notice something about this Mishnah. This Mishnah ran forever. It's a very, very long Mishnah. And it's not like a typical Mishnah that we're used to, where the Mishnah says, halacha is such and such, Rabbi Yehuda agrees or disagrees. Usually it's Rabbi Yehuda who's disagreeing, and then they get on with their lives, and then the Gemara discusses it. Here, the actual back and forth discussion in the Gemara that we would expect to be in the Gemara is here in the Mishnah itself. Okay, so we've covered the Mishnah. Now let's look at the Gemara. The Gemara is going to get interesting. Tana Rabbanan. Halacha zo nit'alma mibnei b'teira. Bnei b'teira were the Nisiim, the proto-Nisiim, during the period of the Tkufot, before Hillel and then Shammai I mean, Hillel and Shammai were the last of the Zgot, the first of the period of the Nisim. The Bnei B'Teirah were the religious leadership during this period before Hillel. And this halacha that our Mishnah just discussed, that Shchita Pesach is Doche Shabbat, they didn't know the halacha. Nit'alma mibnei B'Teirah. Pam achat chal abasar liot b'Shabbat. Shachachu v'lo yadu im Pesach doche et HaShabbat. Im lav. Let's stop here and think for a second. The 14th of Nisan, like I said, next year is going to be Shabbat. Many years, the 14th of Nisan is Shabbat. Erev Pesach is Shabbat. Leila Seder is Motzei Shabbat. Happens all the time. And here, this year, Erev Pesach was Shabbat, and no one knew what the halacha was. How can that be? What's going on here? Such that they need to go searching. Amru, klum yesh adam she'odem Pesach dochet HaShabbat im lav. Amru lahem, adam echad yesh ala miBavel, v'hilel habavli shmo, sheshimesh shnei gedolei ador Shmaya v'Avtalayon, v'yodea im Pesach dochet HaShabbat im lav. They don't know what the halacha is, and they start looking for someone who might happen to know what the halacha is. We need to ask ourselves, how is it that they have no idea what the halacha is? How is it that they don't know what the halacha is whenever Pesach is Shabbat? We need to understand the history of this time period. When was Hillel and Shammai, when were they active? They were active approximately exactly 2,030 years ago, give or take. We're talking about the end of the period of Herod. And with all the credit that Herod gets for building Bayit Sheni in its full glory, he did not get along well with the Chachamim. It seems on at least one occasion, and probably more, he massacred the members of the Sanhedrin. Whenever they would try to limit his authority, he would lead to bloodshed. One of the things that the Romans tried to impose on their subjects, and Herod as an arm of the Roman government, is they wanted control over the calendar. Chazal went out of their way to manipulate the calendar when the Sanhedrin was establishing the months. They would choose to take Eidim, they would choose not to take Eidim. We probably remember the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah about how Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yoshua had this large argument about whether to receive Eidim and thereby gain control over when Yom Kippur would be. Chazal were very, very careful not to ever allow Yom Kippur to either be Erev Shabbat or Motzei Shabbat. Yom Kippur on Shabbat we can deal with, but Yom Kippur to be either Friday night or to be Thursday night or Saturday night was out of the question because it created too much hardship, and they were very careful to avoid that. And apparently another thing they would successfully avoid is allowing Erev Pesach to fall on Shabbat. But if the Sanhedrin wasn't fully functional, or the Roman imposed kings, Herod, took control by force of the calendar, we could end up with a situation. And remember, they weren't printing their calendars a full year or 2 years or 10 years in advance. They would declare Rosh Chodesh 14 days before Pesach. And if the Sanhedrin couldn't meet, or for reasons of his own, Herod imposed Rosh Chodesh on Shabbat, then the 14th of Nisan would be Shabbat, and Pesach would be Motzei Shabbat. So even though Chazal were careful not to allow that to happen, it happened. And it hadn't happened in such a long time that they didn't know what to do. So they sent and looked for someone who knew, and they found Hillel. Hillel Habavli eventually becomes known as Hillel HaZaken. Shalchu v'karu lo, amru lo, klum ata yodeh ma'pesach doche et haShabbat im lav, amar lahem, וכי פסח אחד יש לנו בשנה שדוחה את השבת? הלא הרבה יותר מ-200 פסחים יש לנו בשנה שדוחים את השבת. You're worried about whether Pesach is doche Shabbat? We have hundreds of korbanot each year that are dochim et Shabbat. Amru lo minayin lecha. What are you talking about? Amar lehem. Ne'emar moado b'Pesach, v'ne'emar moado b'tamid. Ma moado hamur b'tamid doche et Shabbat, af moado hamur b'Pesach docha et Shabbat. Ve'od. Kal v'chomer hu. Let's, before we get to the Kal v'chomer. What's Hillel's main proof? The Korban Tamid, and in the Yerushalmi this is developed a little more fully, but the Korban Tamid, the Psukim very specifically say that the Korban Tamid is brought b'moado. And the Korban Pesach, it specifically says that it is brought b'moado. So Hillel has set up a Gzeira Shava, just like moado. Notice this isn't a limud, he's setting it up as a Gzeira Shava. And he's saying, Pesach is b'moado, just like the Korban Tamid is b'moado, and later on it says in this that the again this is all from Parshat the Parshat Tamid and Parshat Pinchas, is that the Korban Tamid is brought on Shabbat. So we know that the Tamid is docha et Shabbat, and from the similar parallel language of moado by the Tamid and by the Pesach, we learn from this that the Korban Pesach is doche et Shabbat. Va'od kal v'chomeru. What's the kal v'chomer? Uma tamid shein anush karet doche et Shabbat. Pesach she'anush karet eino doche et Shabbat. If you don't bring the Korban Tamid, it's not a good thing, but there's no onish karet. But if you don't bring the Korban Pesach, the punishment is karet. So surely, if the Tamid, which is not punishment of karet, we are doche Shabbat to bring it, surely to avoid the onish of karet, we are doche Shabbat to bring the Korban Pesach. Miyad hoshivu barosh uminuhu nasi alehen. They immediately made him the nasi. It's such a strange situation where someone comes and brings them a proof for halakha that they should have known, and they elevate him to be the nasi. Clearly, they were looking to establish a nasi from Beit David. They were setting up a counter or a contra to Herod in the form of a nasi mi Beit David. Miyad hoshivu b'rosh minu nasi alehem v'haya doresh kol hayom kulo b'ilchot haPesach. And he sat and he taught the Hilchot Pesach all day. Hitchil mekantran b'dvarim. He started mekantran. Rashi translates it as to be contrarian. It sounds like they have the same root. He was harassing them. Hitchil mekantran b'dvarim. Amar lehem mi garam lachem she'elem mibavel v'ya nasi alechem. He was harassing them and saying, why is it that the situation was created where you needed to import me to be the nasi? It's because you didn't study well enough under the great scholars, like Hillel himself did under Shmaya Mivton, to learn these halachot. Amru lo, Rebbe, shachach v'lo havi sakin. Me'erev Shabbat. They ask Hillel HaZaken, someone who forgot to bring his knife to do the Korban Pesach. Each person brought their own knife for the Shrita. Mahu, what does he do? He can't carry Breshut Rabim on Shabbat. That Rabbi Eliezer would say you can, but no one else does. Amar lahen halachazo shamati v'shachachti. Later the Gemara is going to say this is a mild punishment to Hillel for having been arrogant to them about their not having studied well enough on the Shmaya V'Avtalion. So he's forced to admit that he once knew this halakha, but he forgot. Ella, but he has a solution. Hanach lahen Yisrael im ein neviim hem, b'nei neviim hen. L'machar misha b'scho talet tochvo b'tzimro, misha b'scho gedi tochvo ben karnav, re'eh ma'aseh v'niskar halacha. Hillel says, I don't know what the halacha is, but why don't we wait till tomorrow and see what the Amcha do? They know what to do. And indeed, the ones who brought a goat wedged the knife between the horns and let the animal bring its own knife. And the ones who brought sheep buried it in the wool and let the animal bring its own knife. And he saw it and he remembered and he says, yeah, Amar kach mekublani mipi shemaya v'avatayon. Now that I see it, I remember that that's what I was taught. Okay, so we have this long discussion of how we know we know that Korban Pesach is Doche Shabbat. If we look at the version of the same story in the Yerushalmi, it's a little different. Let's look at that. No, we want the previous page. Here we go. The Mishnah starts at the top. And they tell almost word for word the same story, but it's longer. And there's some slight differences. Among them, there's the Yerushalmi version has a very almost hostile attitude of the Chachamim to Hillel HaZaken before they accept him and even after they accept him. And the part about how he taught them this limud and they immediately made him the Nasi, in the version in the Yerushalmi, he's going on. And it specifically says that he goes all day in trying to convince them of this halacha. And at the end of the discussion, he says, okay, fine. By the way, now that you've rejected my Gzeira Shava and my Talmud Chacham and my Kal V'chomer and all these other things, Af al pi shaya yoshev v'doresh lehen kol hayom lo kiblu mimenu ad shamar lehen yavo alai. He takes a vow. Kach shamati mishmaya v'avtalyon kevan sheshamu mimenu ken amdu v'minu oto nasi alehen. They didn't accept his proofs. They didn't accept any of his limudim, whether it's a Kal V'chomer or Gzeira Shava. They insisted on arguing with him until he says, "Oh, by the way, I have a Masorah for this." And the Gemara continues going back and forth and discussing whether one can make his own Gzeira Shava, and at the end of which it says, "A halacha she'ein la beit av is no halacha." Here it is. Rabbi Zeira mishum Rabbi Akiva. Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Kol Torah she'ein la beit av eina Torah. The Korban Eda explains what is the she'ein la beit av. Klomar shelo kiblami rabotav eina Torah ve'ein l'smoch alea. Any halacha that you can bring all your newfangled ideas and your wonderful proofs, if you didn't learn it from your Rebbe, it's no halacha. A ki'ilu posek, however brilliant he is, who does not have the force of masoret behind him, eino Torah. That is not the halacha. And in the words of the Korban Eda, ve'ein l'smoch alea. Okay. Let's try to understand what's going on here. Let's go back to this. There must be a way of doing this. Stop share. We back? Okay, we're back. Okay. What's going on here? Why are we having so much trouble figuring out what the halacha is? And what is the heart of Hillel HaZaken, what is the heart of his proof? His proof is the Gzeirah Shavah that he learns from Moado. And I think to understand what Hillel is doing and to truly understand the nature of the Korban Pesach Bichlal, we need to look at the Pasuk itself. So let's do that. Wait. I think I need to click on share. Share screen. There we go. There we go. Okay. On the right, over here, we have Psukim in Parshat Ba'alotcha, chapter 9. This is immediately after they finally get the Mishkan assembled. Apparently, Chazal understand this, on that very day. Not next Shabbat, this coming Shabbat will be Shabbat Chol HaMoed, but the following Shabbat will be Parshat Shmini, the day when they finally finished the Chanukat HaMishkan, and the whole of the rest of Sefer Vayikra is mushed into that one day. We go to the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar, Sinai, and then we have Parshat Naso with the Chanukat HaMizbeach, all the 12 of the Nisiim, and then we have Ba'alotcha Tanerot. This is all this Yom HaShmini, which lasts for a full volume of the Chameshei Torah, is all this Yom HaShmini. Vayidaber Adonai Moshe b'midbar Sinai, b'shana hashenit l'tzeita me'eretz Mitzrayim b'chodesh harishon le'mor. It's a machloket in Chazal whether this is the 1st of Nisan of the second year or the 8th of Nisan of the second year. But it really doesn't matter. The point I'm about to make comes out the same. The Gemara tells us that this was a Shabbat. How do we know this? Because the Gemara says this day, the Yom HaShmini of the Chanukat HaMishkan, was a day it has 10 atarot, 10 crowns. It's the first day of the Mishkan. It's the first day of the year, because Rosh Chodesh Nisan. It's the first day of the week. All these other things. It's Mekubal by Chazal that this day was Shabbat. And if that means that this day is Shabbat, and it doesn't matter whether it's the 1st of Nisan or the 8th of Nisan, the 14th of Nisan is also going to be Shabbat. Vayidaber Adonai Moshe b'midbar Sinai b'shana hashenit l'tzeita me'eretz Mitzrayim le'mor. V'ya'asu b'nei Yisrael et ha'Pasach b'moado. B'abasa yom b'chodesh hazeh bein ha'arbaim tasu oto b'moado. Kocho kuchotav v'chol mishpatav tasu oto. Vayidaber Moshe b'nei Yisrael לעשות ha'Pasach. ויעשו את הפסח בראשון ב14 יום בחודש בין הבאים במדבר סיני ככל אשר ציווה אדוני משה כן עשו בני ישראל. Okay. They are commanded to do the Korban Pesach in the second year b'moado, on its appropriate day, on the 14th day. They're commanded to do it on the right day, and not only are they commanded to do it on the right day, they're commanded to do it correctly. And it goes over and over again, goes back to that same thing.
Sorry, Nachum, the 14th would be a Friday if the 8th is a Shabbat. That's what you mean, right?
No. Okay. That the Pesach was on Shabbat. Right.
That's
correct.
What I thought you meant. So
correct.
sacrifices,
right. Yes. Thank you, Mark. Correct. And then we continue in the next section. And when the Michel El Safan complained that they are being deprived of the opportunity to bring the Korban Pesach, they say, "Lama nigara levilti hakrev et korban Adonai b'moado b'toch b'nei Israel." And Moshe goes back to God and gets the command for Pesach Sheni because they want to bring it b'moado. And in the continuation, again it emphasizes, "K'chukat ha'pasach u'k'mishpato ken ye'aseh." Over and over again, we get the command that it should be b'moado, and that we have to follow the rules. Now, it's kind of weird that we're being told that we need to follow the rules. I need the pasuk to tell me I need to follow the rules? What are you going to tell me? Are you telling me that I can't bring a hot dog for Korban Pesach? What are you telling me? I know what a Korban Pesach is, and I know when it's supposed to be. Right? Babar Sayom, why do you keep telling me b'moado? Why do you keep telling me kichol kukotav v'chol mishpatav? And why are you commanding this at all? Why does Moshe need to be told at the beginning of the second year that they need to bring the Korban Pesach? Already back in Parshat Bo, and here's in Parshat Bo. Vayomer Adonai Moshe v'Aaron zochu chat haPasach kol ben leichar lo yochal bo k'rav edish miknat kasef u'malta oto az yochal bo toshav yisachid lo yochal bo v'bayit echad yeachel lo tisi min bayit min habasar chutza v'etzem lo tishberu bo kol dat Yisrael yasu oto v'chiyagu itcha ger v'asa Pesach lana imol lo kol zacha v'az yikrav lasato v'ayak ezrach ha'aretz v'chol harel lo yochal bo Torah achat yeh le'ezrach v'leger hagar b'tocham Vayasu kol bnei Yisrael kasher tziva Adonai Moshe ve'et Aaron kenasu. They've been commanded on all the kuchol chukoktav mishpatav. They've commanded that this is for Dorot. They know that they have to bring the Korban Pesach. So why, at the beginning of the second year, do I need this whole discussion b'moado? And why do I need to be told over and over and over again? Kuchol chukotav v'chol mishpatav. What is the Torah teaching me here? And I think that the fact that Hillel feels the need to emphasize this chapter in Parshat Baalotcha, to emphasize these psukim and to emphasize the word moado is very instructive. And Hillel is teaching us something about how to read these psukim in Tanakh, how to read Tanakh bichlal, and how to understand Korban Pesach. What is Moshe telling Bnei Israel? They need to bring the Pesach b'moado. Why? Because it's Shabbat. They might have thought that they can't bring Korban Pesach on Shabbat, but no. They're being told b'moado. Even though it is Shabbat, they need to bring it b'moado. K'chol chukotav v'chol mishpatav. What is k'chol chukotav v'chol mishpatav? Well, in the continuation, it sort of says, it says, lo yashuv minu ad boker, be'etzem lo yishberu bo, va'isha shehu lo shehu tor v'derech l'chav v'chodal l'sot petzach, he's got an isu karet. Ish ki yet tamei l'nefesh, he cannot bring. What are the chukot and mishpatim that we need to be careful about? Tamei, etzem lo tishberu bo, hamatzot u'murim yachluhu, v'chiyagur etchem ger v'asa pesach l'nai kuchat ha'pesach v'mishplo ken yaseh, chukah achat yeh lachem v'lager v'ezrach ha'aretz. So, what are the chukot and mishpatim that we're being told to keep? Well, they're here. But very often, when we have parallel texts in Tanakh and we compare them, we notice that there are differences. And if we compare the psukim in Baalotcha with the psukim in Parshat Bo, there's one very significant thing that's missing. Look at them, see if you can see which detail is missing between the two different texts. Does it jump out at you? Here it says about a ger. What does it say here? V'chiyagur itchager v'asa pesach l'nai himolo kol zachar v'az yikrav lasoto v'chol harel lo yochal bo. That's not here in Parshat Baalotcha. The Arelim are not mentioned in the Pesach Hasheni. What's going on? Well, let's think about it. We have a Masoret, and it's not a Masoret Baal Peh, it's a Masoret in Psukim. This is the Haftarah that theoretically we're going to be reading Thursday morning, the Haftarah for the first day of Pesach, Charvot Surim, Vayas lo Yoshua Charvot Surim, Vayamo epnei Israel el Givat Haralot, Mal Yoshua kol ha'am hayotzim miMitzrayim etzcharim kol anshe melchama metu b'midbar derech Tzav Mitzrayim, ki mulim hayu כל העם היוצאים, וכל העם הילודים במדבר דרך בצאתם מצרים לא מעלו. 40 years in the desert, they did not perform Brit Milah. So that first year in the desert, and the Psukim make it clear that other than this first Korban Pesach in Parshat Ba'alotcha, in the second year, the other 39 years in the desert, they did not, 38 years in the desert, they did not bring a Korban Pesach. But this first year they did. They were commanded to specifically. B'moado, even though it was Shabbat. K'chol kukotav, except for one thing. They were arelim. Surely with 600,000 families, surely a whole bunch of babies were born in that first year, and none of them received the Brit Milah. And under normal circumstances, if a father has a son who is an Arel, he is ineligible himself. Forget about the kid. The father himself, the family, are prohibited from participating in Korban Pesach. Anyone who has an Arel in his house cannot bring a Korban Pesach. But here, the first year, the law of the Arel is missing. And that's why the Tmeim L'Nefesh Adam, they come and say, Lama Nigara. If you're not going to follow all the rules, if you're going to allow Arelim to eat Korban Pesach, surely you can find room for us who, according to Chazal, were Mishael and El-Tzafan, who carried away Nadav and Avihu after the unfortunate accident. So they were Tmei Met. So they say, we who performed the mitzvah and were Tmei Met, Lama Nigara. You're allowing Arelim. If you're emphasizing Moado, well, we can't do Moado unless you let us, because we're Tmeim. And for that, the special laws of Pesach Sheni were brought to teach them that, no, a Tamei cannot bring the Korban Pesach, unless everyone is Tamei. So, assuming that Mishnah El-Tzafan knew the 9th chapter of Masechet Pesachim, they said, but you allowed Tmeim under certain circumstances. So why can't you allow us? Lama Nigara. So the Pasuk is very careful. On the issue of Tum'ah, we're not going to allow it. On the issue of Arelim, just that first year, they were going to allow it. And Hillel HaZaken looks at this chapter in Ba'alotcha, and he says, look at the power of Mo'ado. Look at the way that the Torah is set up with the Torah Sheba'al Peh, that we learn from the word Mo'ado. We can learn it from a Kal V'chomer, we can learn it from Masoret. But Hillel wants us to focus on the word Mo'ado. That the rest of the Chachamim weren't interested in hearing it is not the point. They wanted to hear it from Masoret. But Hillel HaZaken, he wants to teach us to learn from the words Mo'ado, that the Pesach needs to be brought on the appropriate time and in the appropriate way. What's so special about this word Mo'ado? We can start winding down. Why is he pushing it so hard? Later on in the Machloket, when we look at the Machloket between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Eliezer understands, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about Korban Pesach or whether we're talking about Brit Milah. Rabbi Eliezer holds that if a mitzvah is doche Shabbat, all of the preparations before and after for doing that mitzvah are dochim et Shabbat. I think, without getting into a whole nother shir that would take us a whole nother hour or 6, this is machloket that to this day is still an open machloket. Pikuach nefesh b'Shabbat. Is it hutra or duchuya? And you could say, what difference does it make? Either way, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to save someone who is in his life, is it even safek pikuach nefesh, is dochet Shabbat. But Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer understand that there's a huge difference between hutra and duchuya. If we say, and I think it focuses on how we understand the word b'moado. Does moadom come to tell us you need to do what you need to do and no more? Or do we say, b'moado, once I've given you permission, it's a blanket permission to do whatever you have to do to carry it off. Let's stop the sharing. Okay, so I think, I'm not sure, but I think that what Hillel is focusing on is the derech limud. Hillel is looking at the moado of Korban Pesach dochet HaShabbat and inviting us to delve deeply into the psukim in Baalotcha, as well as the psukim in Parshat Bo, and to try to understand the underpinnings to the halacha. Hillel could have started, notice that the argument, the version of the Yerushalmi, it ends when he says, I have Masor from Ashmai and Avtalyon. He could have started with that. When they invited him in the first place, they said, we heard there's a rumor of this scholar from Bavel who studied under Shmaya and Avtalyon. He could have just said, I have Masor from Shmayam and Avtalyon, and the discussion would have been over. But no. Hillel wants to go through the limud. He wants to bring the Kal V'chomer. He wants to bring the Gzera Shava. He wants to bring all the argumentation, because that's the way we learn halacha. But then, at the end of the discussion, the Gemara says, any halacha that doesn't have a beit av, any halacha that doesn't have a masoret, that's no halacha. So we have to strike a balance between learning and being creative and bringing in a limud and a new method and methodology. Hillel comes from Bavel with his methodology. Why does he have to come from Bavel with methodology? Because in Bavel, they didn't have a masoret for Korban Pesach. They didn't have a mikdash. In Bavel, all they had was their limud. They had their techniques for learning. But even with all the techniques of learning that Hillel Zaken, the Gemara elsewhere says that Hillel alaimo im sheva midot, as in the midot like Rabbi Yishmael's 13 midot, that Hillel came from Bavel with the sheva midot, but the Chachamim were not impressed by his midot. What they were impressed, that he had a masoret, that he personally heard from Shmaya and Avtalyon. And halacha, specifically Torah Sheba'al Peh, is a balance between masoret and limud and chidush. And Emir Hashem, next year, Erev Pesach will be Shabbat, and we will bring a Korban Pesach on Shabbat, or the preparations, and we'll do the Zevach Motzei Shabbat, B'mheira b'yameinu. Go home.
Thank you very much, Nachum. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Shkaya.
Chag Sameach to everybody.
How do we do this?